r/ask Reddit. What is something people need to stop romanticizing? Lack of sleep. I need an ode to sleep. Yep, the aviation industry and air forces around the world mandate crew rest time because people were dying from accidents caused at least partly by lack of sleep. But some people make it a point of pride to drive an unsafe amount of hours without rest. In the US, the DOT regulates driving hours very heavily, with massive fines if you don't follow them. Ridiculously expensive weddings. Average cost of a wedding in my state is around $60,000. A lot of people take out loans and debt for one day of living way outside their means. I remember that the national average was something like $25,000. What state are you and where can it be so damn high? I dunno, but adding the words Bay Area to anything raises the price tenfold. I made this mistake with my ex-wife. I wanted a small family event and she wanted a huge extravagant wedding. We compromised a $10,000 wedding, but she kept wanting more and it ended up costing nearly $30,000 in the end. Most of which I had to take out loans for and borrow from family. A few months after the wedding I was so burdened by the debt that I could barely afford to pay the bills and buy food, even with taking on side projects and working overtime. When bills started getting pushed back and accumulating late fees and my bank account overdrafted several times, I felt like all I could do was file bankruptcy. So I did, even though I felt like complete shit doing so. All while my now ex-wife constantly complained to me about not being able to go on vacations and do expensive things. But hey, you live and you learn, right? Living those overly stressed lifestyles, especially in college. Congratulations on your pulling the 6th full nighter to cram even more for your finals. But I'd rather get a decent night's sleep and study with a clear brain. Also, people who manage their lives well and have lots of free time shouldn't be talked down to because someone has it worse. You apparently can't get by unless you're constantly suffering from something. Not to mention the stigma of don't complain about things. There are people worse off than you all over the place, and trying to one up others in personal misery is far too prevalent, at least where I am. Falling in love with a bad boy and hoping he'll change his ways for you. It's the equivalent of every guy who thinks he can make some totally uninterested woman fall in love with him. Haven't you ever heard the age-old saying on why couples don't work out? A man goes into a relationship thinking that she will never change, but she does. A woman goes into a relationship thinking she can change him, but he doesn't. Bipolar disorder is not chic. This. Having out of control emotions, both good and bad, is torturous. You know they're not realistic, but you can't help it. Feeling empty and hopeless isn't glamorous. Being manic and hyperactive isn't fun. It's draining. It's awful. And the havoc makes the people around you miserable too. Not fun. This is one thing I had to explain to my dad after I was diagnosed. He really just didn't understand it and wanted to know more. But because of general conceptions of bipolar, people tend to think it's just good and bad. Really, bipolar is another axis, so there's a 2D plane of good, bad and manic depressed. In my experience, there is not a lot of correlation between the two. I have bipolar too, so it's not as bad. But still, being manic is exhausting. There's been times where I curled up in my bed clutching my pillow because I couldn't even form coherent thoughts. I've spent 4 hours pacing in the kitchen, stepping on the cracks in the linoleum in a specific pattern just to keep myself grounded. I've gone for a run at midnight in February because I literally couldn't stop shaking. Episodes that bad happened very rarely though. I think I've had 6 in 6 years of having bipolar. Started showing symptoms in high school. Didn't get diagnosed for a couple years. But even the more mundane ones are tiring because I can't focus on a single task long enough to get anything done. I also eat absurd amounts of food then, like 5 solid meals a day, which just gets annoying having to keep eating. Manic episodes rarely last more than a day though, and never more than 3. Depression, I feel, is a lot more understood by the general populace. Though it's definitely important that people know it's not just sadness, like I said about the 2-axis thing. The worst part about depressive episodes for me, it's that they just last forever. Usually for 7 days. I've had them up to a month. I'm a lot better at getting myself through those though. Transitioning between them can be kind scary too. Going into a depressive episode, it at least takes some time and I know it's coming. Manic episodes usually take less than 4 hours to set in. but at times can be literally instant. In those cases it's always some specific event that sets it off. Getting back into my college because I had a medical reason when I got kicked out triggered one of my worst manic episodes ever. I have been on medication for the past year though and haven't had big issues in the last 6 months, so I'm good now. Serial killers. It's important to educate people about them, but the people who talk about wanting to duck them online are crazy. I really don't understand why there are those who literally want to duck people who have killed and raped for no reason. I mean, it boggles my mind how they think they're different and would have been spared from their homicidal urges. Like, you aren't special, you wouldn't have gotten sliced up too. Mental health problems. The idea of the tortured artist. You don't need to have a personality disorder to be a good painter. It's strange, but it feels like this has replaced the equally bad practice of romanticizing drug alcohol abuse as a thing that improves art. Stockholm Syndrome. And she'll scream and she'll fall. Anxiety. I'm sure someone else has already said this, but it can be said again. People on the internet seem to think it's some kind of trend to have anxiety and panic attacks, and they throw terms around like it's nothing. Anxiety isn't a joke, and it isn't something people should claim to have without any reason other than that they feel stressed out. Also, I totally understand that there are plenty of people on the internet who really do have anxiety, but I've seen my fair share of people who are very clearly faking it. People mistake being stressed with anxiety, as much as these are quite similar feelings. Dealing with severe anxiety taught me that there is a big difference between them. Yep, there's a big difference between being worried, stressed about something, and that feeling when your brain starts to loop and all you can think about is whatever it is that caused it, even though you know rationally there's nothing to be concerned about. To the point where you have to physically stop whatever you're busy with to try and take stock and force yourself out of that mindset, which obviously doesn't always work that way. It's a horrible feeling. I'd take getting hit by a car again over a bad anxiety attack, to be honest. Abusive relationships. If you're constantly arguing about anything and everything, calling each other names, causing drama for the sake of it, or guilt tripping each other to do what you want, then you're not good together. Both or only one of you doing this is not okay and not cute. It's abuse. Also, mental illness and faking it for attention. I think a lot of people don't realize a relationship can be any other way. People I know like this are sort of from a background of crappy relationships. It's kind of sad. I almost think we need a basic adulthood set of classes in high schools. You know, financial basics, driving basics, politeness basics, relationship basics, friendship and otherwise, and so on. People need to know that talking crap and arguing all the time isn't what you have to have or settle for. Being overly busy committing to everything someone asks for. People who have activities every night and weekend stress me out. Be at peace. Just learn to be at peace. There seem to be people who are just happy like that, though. I'm not really an introvert per se, and I don't purposely avoid social interaction. But I don't feel a need to seek it, either. I've known so many people who start going mental if they haven't gone to a bar in a week or had some frequent or semi-frequent organized form of we must go place have fun. I genuinely don't understand it, but it's a very real thing that a lot of people seem to feel, and it's really serious to their short-term mental health. That is the difference between introverts and extroverts. Introverts relax by being alone, quiet time. Extroverts relax by being social and blowing off steam. Somewhere along the line it got generalized that introverts hate people and extroverts love them. Child beauty pageants. Children dressing up like adults, in general. Back in 2015, there was a 10-year-old girl who was dressed up in sleek dresses and heavy makeup with lots of mascara, and was posed very sexually for Vogue magazine. She had her hair up, wore stiletto heels, and lots of flashy diamond jewelry. If you look it up, she looks like a 20-something-year-old woman. And now there's those two 11-year-old boys doing drag. One of them stripping in bars and in parades, and posing with convicted felons. The other one did a photo shoot posing nude with an adult queen. It disturbs me that everyone pretends these little children are adults. They're not adults. Those things are creepy. First time sex. Sometimes it doesn't go well, and that is okay. People should also stop saying it has to hurt or be any sort of way. This is true. For some people it doesn't. For me it did so much I had to stop, which led to him saying we were basically still virgins later and making me realize I made a very poor choice for my first. People need to understand that the first time can be like sitting on a knife or completely fine, or anywhere in between. Drug abuse as a way to deal with mental health in rap. It goes way beyond rap. Most people I know are rednecks and wouldn't be caught dead listening to rap, but the go-to method for dealing with insomnia or depression is to drink alcohol until they pass out. As an alcoholic, alcoholism 100% should not be romanticized. That said, full-blown insomnia is absolutely hellish and I do sympathize with those so desperate to get some kind of sleep, even the alcohol-induced shitty kind, that they turn to drink. Possessive behavior. No, it's not cute when your so gets jealous because of everyone that looks at you. It's freaking sick. I mean, honestly, if you don't trust me enough to know I would not cheat on you, we should see other people. I read a fair amount of fluffy chick lit, and this stuff is ridiculously overplayed. The last 3 series I've been into have included the girl being secretly GPS tracked, being handcuffed to prevent her from going where she may be unsafe, and having her mortgage purchased from the bank by the stupidly wealthy, overbearingly protective significant other. They usually throw a fit about it, then acquiesce because she just loves him more than life itself. Like, damn. I just wanna read a cool story about a scrappy, independent woman with a cool job. This trope of her getting into trouble only to be rescued by her stalker/boyfriend lover really needs to die. Earlier times, people just forget the bad stuff and never consider that it was bad back then too. I've learned that nostalgia is toxic. You only remember the good parts. You forget why you chose to get out. Is there an antonym for nostalgia? Not for being positive about the future, but for only remembering bad stuff? War. Ha, good god y'all. What is IT good for? Absolutely nothing. Poverty. Love at first sight, not that romantic, it's just physical attraction. Lucky you if that person is also someone you end up having lots in common with. Not a historian, but my hypothesis is that the trope started as an ideal in a time when you were expected to marry one person at a young age, with the expectation that you would spend the rest of your lives together. When you consider that the alternative was being forcibly hitched to a stranger and expected to stay with them until you die, the idea that they're a perfect match by some magic twist of fate becomes a lot more appealing. Fighting. It's not cool getting almost killed and left with several inner bleedings. Not to mention all the brain damage. No, a concussion is not just getting hurt, it's one step closer to becoming a vegetable. Staying at work late. So many people do it and brag about it, but it's saying you can't get your shit done during normal business hours. So either you are dumb, lazy, or overworked, none of which is something to be proud of. The latter probably matches up with toxic work environment where managers get all pissy if they see people leave before 5 or EOB. One of my old VPs put it this way: for me, I don't care when you show up or leave, just get your shit done. I'm gonna get what I need from you. Some people just have that much work. My dad works for a startup software company and works like 10 hours a day debugging code. Gets paid accordingly though. He really doesn't mind it, because he likes his job. Drinking. Seriously, my Instagram is all boomerangs of bourbon. Drinking or drinking too much isn't some sort of achievement. You are poisoning your brain and body. The abusive relationship between Joker and Harley Quinn. What even drives me crazier was in Suicide Squad when they portrayed it as Joker loving Holly. That movie just showed a complete misunderstanding of both characters, and it's crazy how popular those portrayals are. Joker doesn't love Holly, he uses and manipulates her. Those stories where some kid sells lemonade to pay for their mom's cancer treatment. That's a failure of a system, not a feel-good story. That one recently about the kid saving money and selling his games to buy his mom a car. What the duck even? Like, yep, that's really nice. And that kid has a heart most of us couldn't dream of. But why in the ever-living pissbuck must that be a thing? I live in the rural Midwest. Most people here have never ridden a bus past the age of 16 and have never seen a taxi. A lot of the older ones have traveled abroad, though. They've seen this county and Vietnam. There are no typos there. I recently learned that there is a name for areas like mine. Transportation deserts. We've actually done okay on access to adequate food, but we're lacking in the any job not paying minimum wages 45 minutes away department. Whoever starts some form of rural distance public transportation here will probably end up a billionaire, which is cool, because to afford the necessary infrastructure, there'll probably need to be a billionaire at the beginning of the project. 2. Pets. I know sounds ridiculous, but there is no such thing as an easy pet, and it's not guaranteed you will get a cuddly dog, cat, bunny, fish. The time I tried to cuddle my fish was pretty hard, but after some minutes it understood that I didn't want it to hurt it and went all calmed. Good fish. It's easier if it's a cuttlefish. Being OCD. There's a difference between being neat and particular and a clean freak and having crippling and wanted thoughts, behaviors and actions. In one case you're just extremely anal. The other, more serious case, you have a genuine mental health diagnosis. Having children. And I'll explain. I know a lot of people that aren't ready to have children, mostly because they are poor, but because they see their friends or other family members having kids, and they want one so they have one. Then their lives and the child's are ruined forever. Stop having children if you can't take care of them. It's so problematic to have a child before your own life is even sorted out, without a solid, steady income and living conditions good enough for yourself. People aren't ready to be parents. Why submit your kid to that hardship as well? Affairs. Abusive controlling relationships, i.e. Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey. No one would stay with those creeps in real life. Unfortunately, they often do. Look up learned helplessness. It is when people just accept the position they are in and never make an effort to change because they don't see it as a possibility. Child abuse presented as a good parenting technique back in my day. Whenever someone says, "When I was a kid, I got whipped with a belt every day, and I turned out just fine," it makes me want to whip them with my belt to remind them just how awful it felt. And really, Larry, did you turn out just fine? Because the evidence shows otherwise? You know, I used to be that girl. The hitting a kid to show discipline is good kinda girl. Dad hit and yelled at me whenever I ducked up as a kid or talked down on me whenever I wanted to try something new. I used to tell people my dad hit me and I turned out fine, until an ex pointed out that that was probably the reason I was very indecisive and anxious about things or why I have trouble with authority, and I thought about it for a few days and he was right. So, long story short, don't hit your kids. Make them understand why they're in trouble and there's a big chance they won't do it again. Hopefully. Cynicism under the guise of realism. I often see younger people acting jaded in what I suspect is a defense against being seen as childish. The unromantic skeptic is himself romanticized. I work in schools and I see this a lot with younger and younger children. They don't believe in Santa. They don't really believe they'll achieve their dreams. They don't really raise their eyebrows at anything either. You have to work insanely hard to inspire wonder in children these days, especially kids in inner city impoverished neighborhoods. Flashy displays of wealth and the celebrities that take part. The worst has to be singing about it. Act like you've been there before. Humble up. Think about what you can do for others, not just masking your insecurities. I've seen some movies where a guy kidnaps a girl and she falls in love with him. Why? Stockholm Syndrome? Depression and suicide. It's not charming. It's not poetic. It sucks and is not cool. Vaping. Yes, it's healthier than cigarettes and I definitely do want people who are smoking to try switching to vaping for their health, but kids are getting an addiction at a very young age. Nicotine is extremely addicting, guys. It took me really long to break my habits and it has affected my mental and physical health so much to stop smoking. Anxiety. Sick of people making anxiety look all cute and adorable when in reality it's panic attacks and the crippling pressure of overthinking on a constant, leaving you exhausted but won't let you sleep because you're still panicking. The way society is obsessed with personality, regardless of character or even competency, Getting recognition and rising in the ranks is more about how you can sell a pen rather than productivity or expertise. God forbid you end up eating without making a decision on a complex problem that requires research. You're seen as wishy-washy. They're going to go ahead with the plan from the guy confident and running the train off the tracks. The mommy needs wine. Movement. Your kids will be shitheads sometimes, it's all part of it. If they're shitheads all the time, that's your fault, and if you're drinking all the time to deal with them, then you have a problem and it's not funny. Thinking that when a woman says no she's just playing hard to get. I'm pretty sure it was already mentioned, but still. Fighting for love. And by this I mean fighting with the person you like. The thing that should be romanticized is mutual respect. Depression and suicide. 13 Reasons Why is the most bullshit excuse story I've seen projected out there to my recent knowledge. I stomached 45 minutes of this bullshit and I refuse to watch anymore. It doesn't even deserve a second season because it's just going to mislead more people into understanding the turmoils a depressed individual is dealing with. Everything in that show is not as convenient as it likes to seem. It's based off a book too, which is even more insulting because I doubt the book even gets anything right too. No, depressed and suicidal people aren't like Jigsaw from the Saw series, who make cassette tapes containing recordings just to make people feel bad that they've got pushed to the edge. They are not that scheming. Every day to a suicidal depressed person's life is a constant struggle. A struggle that may or may not see no end. A series of tidal waves of emotions crashing into them, and they are out there swimming in the thick of it, gasping for air as they struggle to swim. They reach suicide when they absolutely feel like the world has given up on them, including those who've had long tenures with them like friends. Stop buying into 13RW's bullshit already. Paris. Once you get past the touristy stuff, it's just a big city with big city problems, and the Eiffel Tower is like a giant electrical grid. Sports. The sports themselves are okay. People liking sports is fine. But when you treat athletes different from other people just because they play football, that's the problem. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.